Hello everyone, and I guess I haven't made an official announcement on YouTube yet, but I am home, I'm in New Hampshire, I'm off the Appalachian Trail. And a lot of people are saying, like, I'm sorry, this must be so hard, but it really was an easy decision. I think it's what needed to be done. I feel a lot better about myself that I'm not being selfish, I'm thinking about other people, and then it was just bound to happen. So I will tell you kind of the story about how coronavirus played a role in my thru hike. So I got to Georgia on February 25th. And if you remember from my previous videos, my boyfriend had the flu. So we got off the airplane, drove right to urgent care, and even at that point, it wasn't a big deal. They're like, okay, yeah, you have the flu. There was like maybe a tiny mention of coronavirus, like if it continues, come back because coronavirus is a thing. But at that point, it was very rare that someone in the US had it. So even at that point, it wasn't an issue. I didn't think it was going to affect my hike at all. I started the hike, and even I remember on day one when people were putting on hand sanitizer and keeping their hygiene up, it was more to prevent norovirus. Again, corona wasn't an issue. So I'm gonna fast forward to when I was in Fontana Dam. I took a zero there the day before I entered the Smokies, and this was March 13th, I believe. So I spent my 0 day in my hotel room scrolling Facebook and watching the news at the bar, and at that point I realized that this was something. Again, it wasn't an issue that would ever take a hiker off the trail. I think everyone was just using precautions. At that point, the biggest problem was toilet paper, and that's what people were talking about. So I went into the Smokies on February 14th, and I spent 3.5 days in the Smokies, very disconnected from the world. I was hiking 20-mile days. I wasn't on my phone a whole lot. I was saving my battery. It was in airplane mode. I would take it off airplane mode a couple of times a day just to call my boyfriend, check in on everything, say goodnight, and that was it. So I was very disconnected until March 17th. And that is when I got out of the Smokies. And I remember sitting on a rock with my friends John Mayer and Roadrunner. And we just passed the little box where you put your permits in. We're sitting on the rock. We got very good service. And that's when I read the email from the Appalachian Trail Conservancy that basically they were urging everyone to get off trail. So at that point, it started to become real. But we were thinking that we were ahead of the bubble. We weren't around many people at all. We already started. I took the message as we don't want any more people out on the trail. And that might be a little selfish thinking that, but I was already 200 and something miles into my hike. I wasn't very aware of the severity of coronavirus at that time. So we stayed, this was St. Patrick's Day, we stayed the night at Standing Bear Hostel. My friend John Mayer made the decision that he was going home because of it. And I think that's when it started to get real, that people were actually leaving the trail. But then again, I was thinking, this isn't for me. I'm not going to leave the trail because of this. And I knew that my parents were visiting the next week. This was always in their plans. They were always going to drive down and meet me wherever I was, just to spend a couple days with me, get a hotel, and then drive home. So I was like, I'm not going to leave the trail now. I'm at least going to wait until my parents come and pick me up. So from Standing Bear Hostel on March 17th, I hiked 2 more days into Hot Springs, and that is when I really started taking it seriously. my boyfriend called and said that I should talk to my parents. I called my parents, and they flat out said, I think it's time to come home. And I think that I was just waiting for a moment like that, for someone to not look me in the face because it was over a phone call, but for someone to literally come to me and say, Taylor, you need to get off the trail. So that was an easy decision right then and there. I was just like, okay. I got off the phone, I started looking at flights. This was 10:30 in the morning. I found a flight at 2:45 that afternoon. The caretaker of the hostel, Candy Mama from the Dower Duo, she offered to drive me to the airport, which was only an hour away in Asheville, North Carolina. So I took her up on that offer and I flew home that night. And I was back home by 7:30. So it was a very quick decision to make. And I think now I'll kind of talk about the reasons why thru hikers should get off the trail. I'm a healthy woman in my 20s. I don't think the coronavirus is going to hurt me. But that doesn't mean that it can hurt other people. I can be a carrier for coronavirus, and I could potentially give it to these small mountain towns all up and down the East Coast. And that's scary, that I could potentially harm communities, and yeah, I don't want that to happen. So there's the worry about me being a carrier. There's also the worry that hostels were closing. So every 3, 4, 5 days, I found myself in a hostel. And organizing hostel stays could be a little stressful as it is. And I wasn't ready for the stress of not being able to find somewhere to sleep, take a shower, do laundry after hiking all these big mile days. So there's the hostel stays. There's also the resupply to get food every 5 days. That was starting to become an issue. I wasn't sure where my food would come from. So I think there's all that stress that I didn't want on my thru hike that made it easy for me to leave. There was also the possibility of New Hampshire shutting down, and maybe my parents wouldn't have been able to drive to me that next week. Maybe I wouldn't be able to find transportation home and all of that. So I had to really take a look at my thru hike and ask myself if that's the experience I wanted, and it wasn't. I wanted trail magic. I wanted to be able to get into a town and sit in a restaurant and eat as much as I can. I wanted to stay in hostels and hotels, and I didn't want to have to worry that I wasn't going to be able to find all that. So now that I'm home, I'm really taking this seriously. I am self-quarantining myself for 2 weeks. I did go on like a little hike yesterday, but I'm going to purposely choose trails and mountains that I know are less populated. So that's where I'm at. And the adjustment from going on trail to home has felt natural. I'm not totally bummed that I'm not on trail, because I know that I didn't quit. I know I didn't get injured. I knew this decision was out of my control. And I know I could have gone to Katahdin and I could have been a thru hiker, but that just wasn't in my cards this year. So talking about the future of my thru hike, what am I going to do next? I know a lot of people talked about flipping, starting at Katahdin when this blows over and then hiking south to where they left off. I don't think that's the thru hike I want. I want a true NOBO 2,193 mile experience. So I am going to try this again next year. AT class of 2021. I want to start at the same time. I still want to start at the last week of February, and I still want to do it in 4 months. I still want to push myself. Just everything is going to be delayed a year. And I am thankful that I had my 3 weeks on trail to get the backpacking experience I needed, because when I first set out there 3 weeks ago, I didn't have any experience. So now I'm thankful I know how all my gear works. I'm thankful I know what to eat, what to drink, how to keep myself healthy on the trail, different precautions I need to take. I learned a lot while I was out there. I'm going to take everything I learned and apply it to next year's through hike and hopefully make an even more successful hike and make it all the way. So that is where I'm at. I knew I needed to make this statement. I want to remind everyone that my videos are delayed. So even after you see this video, there still might be a couple other hiking vlogs that come out. But just so you know the timeline of everything happening, the ATC didn't shut down the AT until after I was through with the Smokies. And then once I was through with the Smokies, I hiked to the next town and then left. And I think that was the most responsible decision I could have made. So I hope you enjoy my videos of the 20 days I spent out on the Appalachian Trail, and I will vlog next year's through hike. If there's anything you want me to talk about, my experience, you can leave them in the comments. I could do like a post-section hike Q&A video. I just want to be open and honest with everyone and let you know what's going on. So thank you for watching this video and supporting me on my through hike. I've been so overwhelmed with the amount of support and kind messages I've gotten, and I just really appreciate it. So I will see you in my next video, whatever that may be. Bye.